Oh, hey. Uh, like in the past, I've said that I wanted to get this car up and let you guys just take you up underneath it and talk to you about some of the things and the way it's set up. And of course, this is what this video is, just short and sweet. Um, I'm going to make the necessary changes that I need to make and uh, and make it better. Here shortly, the unit chip's going on. I got my answers, so the unit chip's going on. I'll get the large injectors that I need. I'll take off the restrictor to the veggie deal. With the unit chip, I'm going to see how that works at first. I'll show you guys, okay? And it's in regards to the fuel, how the fuel's set up. But once I get the larger injectors in there, I'll take the restrictor out, and it'll give me full adjustability. Again, the unit chip will be incorporated in on that, um, or it'll just be on its own. I'm not sure how I want to do it yet. We'll see. But anyway, that's what this video is. Just a quick overview of what I've got on this thing. And next up, we'll get the interior finished out with the door panels. I want to do I say there's the sunroof does leak sometimes, and there's a guy that's going to redo the sunroof or replace it altogether. It's just a little moonroof. It's a manual moonroof. But while he does that, I want to do a headliner. Like you see sometimes, I'm going to go pick a fabric or something and put what I want up there. But anyway, here's this video. Enjoy.
All right, guys. So there's the intercooler. Obviously, like I've noted before, the intercooler is not that big. It's only 10 pounds, and it's going to get to 15. I may put a bigger intercooler on it later. I'm not sure. There's the beat up oil cooler right in front of the condenser. As you can see, that's the OBX header coming down. It's a 4 into 2 into 1. There's your flex tube right there. I kind of zoomed out right here so I could get a bigger shot. Now, if you'll notice, right after the flex tube, the pipe curves off to the right. I wanted more of an aggressive curve so I could get even more room, because look how low the charge pipe to the left of the exhaust pipe sits. So we'll go through that here in just a second, but you can see where I've added right there on the pipe, the charge pipe up where it curves up right there. That's to help keep heat off that section of the pipe, and I've added some more up further up, and you'll notice this is a little bit slow motion here. So right there, you see where the pipe's been wrapped, the exhaust pipe's been wrapped, and I put that spray coating. Those heat exchangers right there, I wasn't sure those were going to work or not. I may move them up closer to the intercooler. I'm just not sure. I just don't know if they work or not. They're supposed to be like little heat exchangers in there, and I figured, okay, before the intercooler, I'll take off some heat that's generated by the turbo, but I don't know, being close to the exhaust, whether or not it helps or not. So as it comes up, you can see where I put all the heat reflective tape up above the exhaust and the charge pipe. Um, Again, I'm not sure how that works. This is, again, this setup here was just to place this stuff. I did not intend to keep that as a permanent mount deal. You can see how it flexes when I move it. And I don't want a solid mount, but I want it a little bit firmer than that. But I need to get that piping up higher, closer. And so here in the future, I may go ahead and find a different pipe setup that I can move that exhaust pipe over to the driver's side more, so that I can Siamese run the pipes up inside the tunnel there. So, but the coating and the wrap for this thing, that was that heat wrap, and of course they have a spray coating that you can put on it. I did that. It's worked up, held up good. So I think I got short of 300 miles on this thing, and my goal was to run at 500, then get it up and find all the oil leaks and loose stuff and things that aren't working, and just kind of get it. This is the first time I've had it up on a lift since I've done it. I did everything on my back in the garage. So um, again, the mounting systems right here, those are just simple, cheap exhaust hangers. So you can see the pipe here gets pretty close, and I did put some of that reflective tape right there where the two come together. So I believe I got like what, a half inch there distance. There's a little light to help us out. Um, but yeah, so again, this is just getting it up, seeing how everything's ran. I've driven it 300 miles or so. I think the left exhaust tip, there's a mount there that I found to be loose. The bolt was almost out. So, but yeah, so that's how I have the piping ran right there. There's the other mount there. It's a solid, it's pretty much a solid mount. Although it's a rubber steel mount, it's pretty solid. There's not much movement. I think I may do something about that. I don't like how tight or hard it is. But again, that coat, that exhaust heat wrap with that spray coating on there has really sealed the heat inside there, and of course protected the pipe and stuff. So yeah, those heat exchangers, it was a gamble. I didn't know whether they'd work or not. I may put one just on the entry into the intercooler coming up where I've got some room. But the oil pan drain plug right next to it, I had an old oil, I think, temperature gauge that I used to use, and that's where it was hooked up to. So you can see the pipe goes up. There's the axle. It goes right by the axle, in between the axle and the steering rack. And then, of course, it 90s right in front of the engine, right in front of the crank pulley. And that's how I got it ran. Um, so pretty much early on, I did find some contact from the axle onto that pipe, and I moved the little couplet, the little mount, the bracket up some. Now it's barely touching, not enough to get through, but right there in that section, right before the intercooler, that's where I may put that one of those heat exchanger pipes. And as you can see, the pipe diameter transitions to a larger pipe as it goes up in between the fan module, the shroud, and the subframe right there. It goes up, straight up, and then of course it goes head on into the throttle body after it makes a 90. So there's the filter where it's mounted. Of course, for 300 miles, it looks dirty. Um, Again, that's how I've got the turbo mounted right there. You'll notice right here there's a leak, but I've determined, I believe that it's coming from the lower, the oil return. That fitting there, all the fittings that I've incorporated into this kit, these are these cheap Chinese ones. They're not Russell, they're not Earls. But see that leak right there? I believe it's spraying out of that fitting right there. I thought it was coming from up top, but I didn't see anything leaking down from top. But I do see it on the, obviously the boost, the tile wastegate, and I see a little bit there, but I don't have any oil whatsoever, any oil smoke coming out of the tailpipe. So it's not like it's going through the turbo, getting burned, and throwing out the pipe. So that's not where it's coming from. But if you look, there's the return. It goes over to the driver's side with the braided hose. Well, look right there. See again. See that's like oily residue, oily dirt, and I believe it's coming from that bottom fitting. So I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to check into it and see. But again, that was the goal: find out where it's coming from, and then fix it. I might have to use some Teflon tape there. I did just use anti-seize on the threads. Usually with AN fittings, that's their design. They're meant to not have to have any Teflon, but I guess I will. So anyway, there's your the check valve right there, so the oil doesn't flow back. That's your return pump right there. So that hose right there is sucking up oil from the turbo center section, and of course goes into the pump. And then the pump, the top line, the bottom line has to be bigger than the top line. I think they said you can go as small as 4 AN on the top. But so I've got it mounted to the spare tire well there, just like I have a couple of the brackets for the turbo mount. But that line right there, I've got going in between through the rear subframe, and then of course joining the evap from the catch can, everything pretty much, oil return, or sorry, oil feed to the turbo. That's all on the passenger side. See a little bit of oil leak right there? That's not brake fluid. That's oil, and again, it's, I believe it's spraying from. I had a leak coming from back there for quite some time. I tightened that fitting up that's at the bottom of there, and the leak in the garage stopped. So I knew it was coming from there, but it's either been blowing from there for a while, or that's residue from before I fixed it. It's hard to say. So but again, I'll go through it. The nipple on the side of the pipe there, of course, that's going all the way up to the catch can. There's your charge pipe. Charge pipe comes down, and again, right where it has the opportunity to, it starts Siamesing the exhaust pipe all the way back up. So, and of course, there's your lines feeding back up. I ended up zip tying that one line back up a little bit better, added a couple more protection or support points. And so everything feeds back up to the top there. I have a very, very, very tiny front oil pan leak. Like some of these cars, when you go to pry the oil pan off, you really got to pry it right there at the timing cover. And if you don't beat it down flat enough, sometimes even if you do beat it down flat enough, you're going to have some leak. So that's what that was from. But again, I suspect this fitting, again, it's Chinese crap. Chinese crap. China. China. So, you know, again, just the purpose. I mean, this isn't anything that's a surprise. I had wanted to drive it, find where things were going to be loose, find things that were leaking and stuff like that, and fix them. And reevaluate if something didn't work out right or whatever. Then I don't really like that return pipe being that low. Uh, I'm going to do something about that because if I do higher center something on the road, it'll rip it right off of there. So I'm going to try to. I may end up clocking that center section to a 45 degree, and that way get it up. Now here, I'm just showing you the map sensor setup that I have. Now I did have the map sensor connected directly to the manifold, but I was having the map sensor code, and so I ended up inserting that check valve into it, kind of like the old school stuff, to hide the boost signal from the map sensor. And since I've done that, it worked good, and so that's why I've done that. That's like I think I got that from Worldpac. It's a VW, a turbo model VW check valve that they use similarly um, to hide check signals. That's the Geo Storm throttle body. It's the bigger engine one, so it is physically bigger. If you just get the single overhead cam one, I think it is, it's the same diameter. It's bigger mouth, but it tapers down to the same diameter as the stock S series. You don't want that one. You want the dual overhead cam one. And I did port open the intake manifold. You can see when you do this, it cams the throttle cable differently. So instead of going through the bottom, you have to go over to the top. So I edited the bracket there for it. And pretty much, I mean, it fit really good. The little nipples down there you see, the vacuum nipples, when you put the throttle body onto the manifold, it blocks those, so you can't use them unless you were to drill holes up into the manifold face there. So you could use them as vacuum, but I didn't do that. And also, there's some coolant that goes into there too. There's the what is that? HKS blow off valve. I ended up putting that little the three prong disc in there. I like that sound over the other one. There's your FMU. That's the Veggie unit, and that little dot right there on that hose. That's the restrictor. And when I get the bigger injectors, get the unit chip installed, I'll put larger injectors and I'll remove that, and that way it'll be able to I'll be able to run larger, better, more fuel and utilize it. But right now it's capped. It can't go low enough on its own to be usable. So that's pretty much the extent of it. There's those nipples down there, but yeah, I mean this is just an overview of it. I wanted to show you guys. Now switching gears here, there is no, obviously the Saturn's an open deck engine just like Hondas and them, but Hondas tend to have a little bit more gap in between the block and the cylinder itself. But there's a couple ways you could do what this is called pinning it. You just use some aluminum rod, about a half inch or an inch worth, and you drill the hole. You basically press them in, and that's Bob's your uncle. Then you go have your block refaced. There's another method called posting. That's a little bit better method because as the fire lights, there's one side of the engine, I forget which side it is, that gets the load of that force being shoved down, and around midway up the cylinder, you add a second set of posts, supports. Okay, so on the one side that doesn't have the load, you can just do the top postings on each cylinder. On the one side that does get the load, you would put the ones on the tops, and like I said, around midway down the cylinder, you'd put the other one. I may do that here shortly. Talked to a guy on YouTube, said that he runs 15 pounds all day long for a couple years now without a metal head gasket. I don't know. I have to take him at his word. But I'd rather have something. If I'm gonna run 15, 20 pounds, I want something to support that floating cylinder more than just you know nothing. So and then work on a metal head gasket. But so there's just a kind of a segue into that, talking about the strength of these blocks. The guy says it handles 15 pounds, but then he said he doesn't go into fifth gear and hold it there, and he would never answer why. So I don't know why. But so that's that right there. And let's switch gears, talking about something that I touched on last video about pressures. And remember, we talked about last time, the difference between gauge pressure, atmospheric pressure. They call it different kPa, bar, and all that stuff. I took a quick, a Torque Pro set of digital of the gauges, and I wanted to just show you what I'm talking about, atmospheric versus gauge pressure.
This is with the map sensor edit. Notice the short-term fuel trims were getting as high as 30, which I didn't think that was the case, and long-term is stuck at 21. That may be the max it can pull. Intake seemed okay at first, to where it wasn't reading as high on just normal acceleration, but it still shows 14.7, 14.8 at with key on, engine off. This is key on, engine off. It's at 14.8. So, which is obviously 0 psi, because that's gauge pressure. This is absolute pressure.